Welcome to the Map It Forward podcast, everyone. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Looks like whiskey, feels like tea, made from coffee, and unlike anything you've ever tasted before, Elixir is available at elixirspecialtycoffee.com now. Use your code IMAPITFORWARD to get 10% off your first purchase today. Today on the Map It Forward podcast, I am ridiculously excited to welcome Wilford and Wilford Jr. Lamastus from the Lamastus Estate in Panama. Welcome to you both.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Lee.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful to have you both. I have so many things that I want to talk to you about. I'm very excited about a lot of the great things that have happened to you this year. It's been an awesome year for you guys, yes?
Yeah, it's been a great past years, yeah.
So I guess the big thing that I want to talk about is the journey that it took to get here, because a lot of people might think that it was super easy for you guys to sell coffee for over $1,000 a pound, because clearly it happened overnight, right?
Exactly. It's been a long journey since my grandfather, my grandparents, all the way down to now. Through many crises and innovation, the association that we formed, everybody getting together here in Panama to come out of a crisis, and doing little by little, changing our way of doing things for the specialty coffee market. And every year, another step. As a matter of fact, also different generations. We just had lunch with my dad. He was the second generation. He is the second generation. I am the third one. And then, thanks to my son here, the fourth generation, we'll continue to, improve everything that we do.
So this year was a year where you started to recognize a lot of big wins. Like, I know the last couple of years have been really great for what you've been working on, but
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No. Finish the thought of the question.
So what I was saying is this year, I'm a big fan of like understanding what it takes to get to do extraordinary things, because you know that saying, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Have you heard of that saying?
Yeah. I haven't, but yeah, I understand the meaning.
It's taken generations for you guys to get to become an overnight success, right?
Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
And we are still new as an industry.
Right.
And as a producing country as well.
Tell me more. Like, I'm so curious about where you see yourself today, and then we can talk about how, like, what was the journey over the 4 generations to get you guys here.
Okay, let me start by saying something. In the past 2 years, our coffee farm, Elida Estate, we have 3 coffee farms in the Lamastus Family Estate, but the most awarded is Elida Estate, and Elida Estate is also the oldest one in the family.
Okay.
Elida Estate won the Best of Panama geisha category for natural process and for wash process twice. That nobody never done that before, and we did it 2 years on a row.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2014, we've been competing with that variety, with the geisha variety, which is important because it's the one that is getting the highest demand in the market as of now. And with that variety, since 2014, we've been placing in top places, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 2016 first in one of the categories, being the wash category, and 2008 and 2019, we've been reaching first place in both categories. So it's the maximum achievement a coffee producer can get. Now, of course, it is mentioned throughout the media, and especially the mainstream media, the price of the coffee. And the price of the coffee is a reflection of how people is willing to invest on the quality of the coffee we produce. But the reality is the points and the scoring among several judges from 7 different countries that come into Panama, judge the coffee blindly, and decide this is the best quality. And then they do it again next year. And it's blind. So they have no idea it's ours. So even if they liked us, they don't know if they are helping us. And at the end of the competition, when they uncover the envelopes that are all in a safe, they realize we are the winners. Your friend, Will Young, was the head judge. So anytime
Shout out to Will
him,
Young.
shout out to Will Young. He's a great head judge, by the way. Maybe he's the lucky charm because he's been head judge 2 times. Both times are being outstanding years for us. He was mentioning to me because he's the first person to open the envelopes along with an auditor. Nobody sees what coffee is anything until it's finished. Then they go by codes and they go envelope by envelope. Among 170 plus envelopes, and they start breaking the envelope. And when they go to the envelope that won, and they see that it's Elida Estate, he told me, being this year, after the previous year, he was like, whoa, again. And then when he saw the second one, he was like, oh my God. And we don't want to say that we are like the best coffee producers in the world, but there is a lot of things that we do that I don't think other producers are doing it. And it's a lot of passion and pride of doing this, love for coffee, love for the legacy of coffee, not only in how it tastes, because obviously we love coffee how it tastes. We love to acquire certain tastes from processing and from terroir and from variety, but at the same time we love the legacy it left my family. The fact that I can have the same name as my father and people come to me and say, the story why I use Junior? I use Junior because the first time I went to an SCAA convention in Seattle, I was wearing a badge and the badge says Wilford Lamastus. And somebody approached me and says, you are not Wilford Lamastus. I know that guy very well. I'm like, oh, I am the son. So I'm like, I went to the counter and I said, can you make a change, please? Can this be changed to Junior at the end? And then they said, yeah, sure. And then that's how I got the Junior. So going back to the story. Today people see our story as a success story. Some people see it in a positive, motivating way. And some people say it like, oh, their story in coffee is different. The situation in Panama is different. It's not the same as the rest of the world. But let's remember something. Everybody comes from the same crisis. We had a crisis that hit Panama even worse than other countries since we are so little bit known for coffee. Taking all the way back from the quota system. The quota system, when the ICA existed, the International Coffee Agreement, where everybody sold their coffees for a fixed price. Well, some of the coffees, there was coffees that were not sold through the quota system. But back then, my grandfather was the top negotiator for the co-op in the region where we are now to help the producers in Panama, in the highlands of Panama, sell as much coffee as possible.
Get more quotas. Panama trying to get more quotas.
So they don't have to sell it outside.
Because it was limited. Otherwise, the International Coffee Organization, the agreement says, okay, you are consuming countries, United States, Western Europe, some Asian countries, you guys are willing to help the growers. Why don't we do this? Why don't we make an agreement? You guys are going to buy their coffee at a fixed price, a range of 120 to 140 a pound, something like that. And what they are going to do, they are going to sell it at that price, but we're going to limit the quantity. So how do you limit the quantity when a lot of the countries were producing a lot of coffee, many of the countries? So you had to limit the quantities that Colombia, Brazil, Panama, Costa Rica could export. And it wasn't 100%. But every year, the International coffee organization came back and said, okay, let's see how many barrels we're going to produce. Or say, let's see how many number of bags, how many quotas we're going to give this year. We're going to give this year, say, for example, 80 million bags. So how are we going to distribute that? Should we increase the quantity to Panama? Panama last year didn't increase in production, or did increase in production, but let's keep only 60% of the coffee under quota. The rest, we will sell it to other, the Eastern Europeans mainly, back then, so other Asian countries at much lower prices. So you wanted to get more quotas. The idea was to get more quotas, enough quotas to ship as much, export as much as possible. So you had to take a trip to London, meet with the negotiators, with the director of the ICO, and ask them to give you more quotas because you were increasing in the production, it was too low last year, whatever. So that's what my father used to do. He used to go with some other government officials and some other growers to try to get more quotas for Panama. That's what he did when he was staying for many years ago.
My grandfather did work in several fields of coffee because he was born in coffee farm. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was born in Elida Estate among his siblings. And between his siblings, his father passed away when they were very young. He was only 2 years old. So his mother took over the farm. And then they used to have the coffee production back then was through collaboration in between the neighbors. So they used to go 100 years ago to maybe, let's say, 80 years ago. They used to go to the neighbor farm to produce the coffees all together, pick the coffees, dry them, etc. And then the next week they will go to the neighbor's farm, and they were them and few workers, maybe one. There was not a big working payroll with them. So it was kind of a collaboration when they then divided among, depending on the price, and they were not getting any pay. They were just getting, the owner of the farm they were working in was the responsible for feeding them during that week. So that's how they worked. It was very collaborative. There was no roads up there. There were high mountains. So you have to export coffee with your neighbors, and the different communities did the same. Then my great-grandmother, she was one of the few ladies among the men during this time.
I can relate.
She was working because she was a widow. She widowed from my great-grandfather, and my grandfather was a kid, his brother was a kid, they were still young. So they were in school. So she was starting the way to export coffee through central mills, like it is famous now in Honduras and Guatemala, Costa Rica. So
was it her central mill, or did she take the coffee to another central mill?
No, it was a cooperative.
Afterwards.
After the years.
More the farmers decided to centralize their coffee instead of processing their coffee.
It was a co-op.
Small mill.
Right, but was the co-op in your farm, or was it somewhere else?
And in a neutral site, in a neutral area.
Right.
Today, that same property is owned by the owners of La Palma y El Tucán from Colombia. So now
Felipe and Elizar and Sebastian and all of those guys.
Exactly. They come to Panama often. Panama often. About 3 years ago. Yeah. It's a private business now. They're remodeling. We do some drying there. We have a really good relationship with them and the previous owners. But before, it was not a private business. It was a association, a co-op among several producers. So in any way, so my great-grandfather, let's say, go back to my great-grandfather before he passed away, when my grandfather wasn't even born, he was building these raised beds to dry coffee, and at the same time you could roll them behind a wooden deck that protect them from the rain.
Like drawers. Take it out, get sun, it's going to rain.
Yeah. Wow, what great technology.
Yeah, so he was...
Was that unusual technology for the time?
That's what he started doing, I guess.
Yeah, but he invented himself and his neighbor from next door, they were inventors. So if there was a better communication or was better access to offices on Panama City, on the United States, they could have had a lot of patents from the inventions they had. They invent things. They were so far from downtown Boquete, which was an extremely rural town, and the rural town of Boquete was so far from Panama City. So you can imagine how isolated they were, but they liked it because it was a really nice climate, primary forest, a lot of nature around them. Now we go, then let's jump. We already jumped into my great grandma, that she kind of became a first generation A, let's say it that way, because once she's widowed, she has to take care of the business because she needs to send 5 kids to school.
Wow.
So in that moment, my grandfather and his brother are growing. As they grow, they help mom along anytime they can. But of course, priority was school. They go to school, went to the university, studied agriculture, come back to work with mom, both of them. So they were working in coffee. My grandfather married this lady that she also comes from coffee growing family, but it's a family that is not only in coffee. So it's a little bit different, but he starts working for the father-in-law farm and his own family's farm. And he continued working in coffee. Actually, one of the meetings that he was going to London to negotiate, my father was still in school. He was always involved in coffee as well. For example, he can tell you better than me, when they were kids, they got special permits here in Panama to drive since they were 12 years old, himself and his brothers, so they could help transport the coffee from the farms to the downtown for my grandfather. So they were.
Did you do it, Wilford?
My father.
Yeah, we were 5 brothers. Okay, the difference in age between us is less than 2 years. So we were all working for my dad at the farm. In fact, I was born for my
4
dad.
out of the 5 at some level are in the coffee industry.
Wow.
I was born when my father lives right now. We don't talk about my mother. My mother passed away 4 years ago.
Rest in peace.
She was also living there. I was born in a small coffee farm, which it was 2.5 hectares. Right now, this property is where we do the nursery for our plants to replant at the farm. Okay,
a big seedling place.
A big one. We do 100,000 plants there. As a matter of fact, we also sell. So that's where my dad lives. That's where we had lunch an hour and a half ago. So what happens is I was born in that small coffee farm. So I was surrounded by coffee trees, and we had to pick the coffee when it was getting ready for the harvest, the brothers. And then we started growing into the business. And my dad had the tractors first. I learned how to drive a tractor, one of those small, tractors that are slow with a cart in the back, pull it out. And then we had to go into the public street to go from one farm to the other one. But we didn't have the age to get a driver's license. So what we did is sorry.
These things happen. Don't worry about it. It's technology.
Are we okay?
Yep.
Are you still listening? Yeah.
Yeah, you can still see me. Yeah.
Can you see us fine?
I can see you fine.
We lost Skype. I don't know why.
No, it's there.
Just continue talking. It's okay.
Wow.
No, continue talking.
Okay, so what happens is what happens is then we had to go and drive in the public road. So my father talked to the local authorities, and the 3 of us got special permits to drive around picking coffee for work.
You must have been the biggest badasses in the city.
Limited to where we could go, but it was because we had, remember, my mother was also born in a coffee farm because her 2 parents were also involved in coffee.
Yeah, wow.
The only thing, my dad too, so we were jumping from my mother's farm
to my grandfather's house,
my grandfather's house, to my father's farm, and all over. And then we had to take, because remember, we had at the beginning, when we started working with my dad, we didn't have the the mill at the farm in Elida. So we had to bring the coffee down to the central mill,
which is the same one that my grandma.
Okay, so and whatever, but see, it was just something that it was expected that we did, because who else can do it? Well, later on we grew, and then we had to go, and then we had to went to study.
Tell the story when you were studying in Belgium.
Okay, that's where I'm gonna get. So when I went to study, one of those years I was studying in Belgium at the university.
What were you studying, Wilford?
I was studying agriculture. Well, irrigation, as a matter of fact.
Irrigation.
In Leuven, just north of Brussels. So my dad says, I am going to London in April, whatever. I said, you're going to London again, so why don't I meet you in London? So I took, the boat from Ghent to the port near London, took one of the trains to London, and I show up in his hotel. Then the next day, the whole delegation, my dad, another farmer, and 2 government officials, we went and met with the executive director of the International Coffee Organization, which back then was the biggest shot in coffee, because that's the guy who decided to give you quotas. And he says, okay, we're going to reduce the number of quotas or bags that Panama can export, or we're going to increase it. So we have to go with a plan.
He was not the one in charge of deciding, but he had the final word.
He had the influence.
Deciding, in many other industries or whatever, the CEO is not the one in charge of deciding.
Exactly.
But he had a lot of influence.
Yeah,
so he had
our
case. So we had to present a good case. And I was in the university with all the numbers, fresh, 24 years old I was. And then we went there. And to tell you the truth, at the end, I don't know if we got more or less quotas.
Did you participate when they were there?
I was, I was there, and I met with them. And we met in a big room. We presented our case. I was with my dad. I had already memorized the numbers. And of course, I knew the numbers because I worked for my dad since I was a kid. In fact, we used to sell our coffee, our green coffee, to Costa Rican exporters. So we used to ship it from Panama to whatever, Europe, Germany, or the US.
Let's remember, he's going back. He was talking about 20-something years old when he was in the master's degree. Now he's going back to the teenage years.
When I was a teenager, 14 years old. When I was 14 years old, I remember that's the first time I went with my dad to Costa Rica. We met with some German friends, the German buyers. Okay?
There's a big German community in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe in coffee.
So we went to the samples there. They cupped the coffee there, and they said, okay, my dad's name is such. I like this lot, this lot, this lot. Okay, we're going to take your coffee. The price is such. So we came back by car. It's 5 hours away from our town, San Jose, Costa Rica. So we used to do it. We used to go on vacation with my dad. He used to go probably 4 or 5 times a year, maybe less, something like that. But we used to go once a year. I did that from when I was 14 until 19. So I was very acquainted with the whole thing about coffee, about exporting. Then we had to come back and prepare the coffee to ship from.
It was an apprenticeship, right?
An apprentice.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's an apprenticeship. You're learning. It becomes a part of your blood from when you're a child.
Exactly.
Yeah, and all of the siblings were in some way involved. All of my uncles.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
We're all involved.
But currently he's the president of the
estate.
Group of Lamastus Family Estate.
Yeah, I run the Lamastus Family Estate.
Some of the farms belong to some of the brothers, but they are all produced and marketed under the same umbrella, which is the Lamastus Family Estate that my father presides.
Wilford, I've got to ask you a question about being in that room with those government officials. So you've come from university, you're sitting in that room with these people. Tell me what's going on in your head. I'm fascinated by understanding when we're put into unique situations for the first time, how different people approach those situations and how you, because coffee's not new to you by that point. Coffee is what you breathe, right? But being in these very official government positions, perhaps that was new to you, was it?
Okay, Lee, you want to hear something?
Yes.
Remember, Panama used to get, say, 100 quotas.
Okay.
It's not the number. And then they
Round number.
Then who is going to get the quota? Lee or Wilford Jr. or John or Juan or what or Wilford? Who is going to get the quota? And how is the government going to distribute the quotas? He can give me 50 and I only need 40, or he can give me 5 and I need 40. So
Right.
my father, I remember, he used to go to meetings with all the coffee growers to fight with the government side, with the government officials.
Yeah.
So it was kind of something that you knew more or less the government officials, because they were always trying to see what it was the best for the growers according to them. But the growers said, no, we need more quotas. Yeah, let's give more to this cup, or let's give more to the individual coffee growers or whatever. So more or less, I knew some of the officials, but not necessarily, because they change from year to year. They can change from year to year. So when I went there, it was, as a matter of fact, the Minister of Agriculture was there. Another guy in charge of, it's called marketing, Panama Marketing Instituto Mercadeo Pecuario Marketing Institute of Panama.
For Agriculture.
Marketing Institute of Panama, which deals with the anything to do with quotas or with the market or whatever. And then there was another guy and 3 growers, my dad, 2 more, and myself. But we were all, we were one group. There
Right.
we were trying
One
to get
mind,
everything,
like a hive mind.
One mind. And of
But
course,
remember something, we were under dictatorship at the moment.
yeah, back
Most
then,
of the quota era, Panama was under 2
yeah.
main
Yeah,
dictatorships.
because the dictators took over in 1968. I was 8 years old. So, but anyways, it was a dictatorship, but it wasn't really like something that they were going to totally control everything that was
Did it
going on.
affect the coffee industry, the dictatorship? Did it affect the quotas? Let's start with that. Was it?
Did it affect? Some people say that the militaries had preference for this grower, for that grower, but next year might be me, next year. So it wasn't that bad, It wasn't like a total control.
Probably was a disconnection between the lack of knowledge they had from their offices in the government offices versus the reality what was going on in the coffee farm.
But
the
it's
government
standard corruption too, right? Like people favor, it's the standard kind of corruption that happens pretty much everywhere in all commodities.
Yeah, exactly. So, but see, what happened is the government officials, they had to rely on the growers, and the growers were represented. So they said, okay, so guys, they are saying that we are going to get more this year, but the increase is 5%, but next year they're going to give us 15. No, but next year we're going to have a lower crop. And so all that, was into consideration, which is not difficult. It's just a matter of cycles and all that stuff. So that's how we negotiated. And yes, I was with my dad, so I was there like him, like with my dad. And God, remember that, because remember that you told me that whatever they gave more to Costa Rica or to Colombia and nothing to Panama 2 years ago, and they were gonna replace this year. So things like that I used to deal with my dad and also the other growers. So it was nice. But the interesting thing is that the director of the International Coffee Organization, I got to meet him and everything else, say hi to him and everything else.
He was the guy.
But then at the end, it was just human beings negotiating there. Okay. So,
but in a context, talking back from those times, there is a narrative. Okay, so we've been working. So there's been a group working for a story of Panamanian coffee documentary, and we had an interview. Right now, yeah. They've been interviewing people. They're working on that for over a year and a half, and they've been interviewing people. And part of the story is how things were good in the quota system, things were bad after the quota system, and how we get back to good or even better. But the reality is that crisis is always being there. There was some crisis control in the quota system, something that was a sure thing. So I'm saying quote unquote for the ones that are not listening to me, are not saying me, but the quota system wasn't perfect. Many coffee growers had to sell their coffee outside of the quota system. They had to sell it through the local market or to the Eastern European countries that were not part of the quota system. So there was always a crisis in coffee.
When you say, can I interrupt you there? When you say a crisis in coffee, we're just talking about Panama right now, because that's this discussion. So this is a hot word, a hot phrase right now. And I often wonder if people actually understand what they mean by coffee crisis, because there have been a number of different coffee crises over the last few decades, and they all take a different shape, right? So the current...
Good point. So I am going to concentrate a little bit more on the Panama part. One of the reasons why the first migrators that came to the town of Boquete and the town of Volcan, that came to work on the coffee crops and came to do coffee production, the reason why is because the crop had a longer lasting time. So it was a little bit easier to work with. You know what I mean?
Right. So are you saying that the crop lasted longer on the tree?
Yeah. As different from other fruits that, not necessarily the tree, but...
So coffee in general?
You have to sell them immediately, and it was very complicated for the town and the horses, transportation. The coffee, you could work out throughout the year with that, and it became type of a currency. So there was some stability working with coffee when my great-granddad started working with coffee. Along the way, the world gets a little bit more globalized. There's a little bit more of commoditization of the product. The world, it's competing against each other now. There's more ways of communication, and then the coffee becomes a different type of crop. Now, just for Panama, the cost of production in Panama is high. The quantity of coffee produced in Panama is low.
So why? Why is the cost of production in Panama high? Is it wages related? Is it tax related? Is it interest rates related? What is it?
Okay, so first it's dollarized economy. Dollarized economy makes things a little bit more expensive for us.
Say that again. It's a what economy?
Dollarized economy.
Okay.
US dollar.
Yeah.
Our currency is the US dollar. So our currency is backed up by the US dollar. So once you, for example, let's make an example of Colombia. I'm going to make an example from my friends that I even tell them.
La Palma.
Yeah, so I told Felipe, if you sell your coffee for $10 a pound, and I sell my coffee for $10 a pound, when it comes back to Panama, it comes back to Panama $10 a pound. When it comes back to Colombia, it comes back to Colombia at 30,000 pesos. So you have 3 times more what you can do in reinvesting in several stuff than what I can do in Panama. That's a joke, but it has some reality. The reality is that the dollarized economy makes it a little bit more expensive. The land where it's produced the coffee, mostly steep and highland, makes it more complicated to
labor intensive.
So if you may let me compare, if you compare to, for example, Brazil, that the playing fields make it easier to collect the coffee. Most of the time, it's even collected by machines. But
because of mechanization, right?
Yeah, in Panama, you have to do it by human, but the human each time is saying, hey, I'm not going to do this land because it's too hard. Let's go to another land that is easier. So how do you make your production sustainable?
Cost effective.
If nobody is doing it for the market price of what it costs to pick coffee during a season.
Plus the salary is higher here than in most other countries in Latin America.
Right.
Kind of with
it's
3 times higher than in Nicaragua, maybe 2 times higher than in Colombia, things like that. And most of our inputs, most of our fertilizers, fungicides, all the inputs come from outside Panama, not in Panama.
Well.
Right.
And from Costa Rica, Guatemala, Colombia, even from Europe, fertilization. the machinery that we use to process coffee, anywhere from a small sample peeler comes from Costa Rica, not from Panama. A sample roaster comes from Colombia, Costa Rica, or Brazil, or whatever. Everything not is made here. And our industry, as far as coffee, lacks everything, because you have to understand the macro part. Our neighbor Colombia, if you fly from Panama City to Colombia, you fly 20 different flights per day to different cities. It's 1 hour flight. Yep. From here to San Jose, Costa Rica, it's 1 hour flight. Okay? Costa Rica produces, I think that this year they went down
1.7 million.
1.7 million bags this year. They have been in the 2 million or more. Colombia, 13 million. And they want
14 million this year.
They want to increase. 14 million, they said.
My numbers are updated since I just came back from a producers summit at Verve Coffee in LA. My father wasn't the first day. So those numbers were updated.
1.7 million, but still 1.7 million. Costa Rica, next door. Colombia, 14 million. Panama exported last year 40,000. 1.7 million, 14 million. We exported 40,000 bags.
Now we've gone down, way in the prime. It was way higher.
What does way higher look like?
100,000.
100,000 exports, but there was local consumption. So local consumption is important because thanks to the local consumption, several farmers haven't gone completely out of business.
What kind of local consumption are we talking about? I'm assuming that it's drunk all over the country.
Whatever goes in Panama, in the country. So whatever will go in quality for sea market, for Panama, it will immediately not be able to compete in the sea market, because in Panama, to produce the coffee, probably the cheapest, and my father can correct me if I'm wrong, is about $1.50. $2 to produce coffee.
$2 if you
just to produce.
An average grower. I
was trying to go in more than lower, but yeah, $2.
Very efficient, the most efficient coffee producer, not less than $1.70. In the sea market, it's less than $1.
Yeah, the sea market's at 94 today.
The local roaster buys at $2.10 a pound. So he wants
or more,
coffee growers of Panama, or a little bit more. The coffee growers of Panama to continue producing coffee, because they import coffee.
The coffee
from Central America.
So we have
to roast.
So
because it's cheaper?
Because it's cheaper, and because we don't have enough.
And we don't have enough. So there are different companies, right? Big companies. We can talk about Café Durán, that is the biggest buyer of coffee inside Panama, and we can talk about
buyer of Panamanian coffee or buyer of exported coffee?
Both. But
okay.
Let's say that, so Café Durán buys Panamanian coffee at the most they can. But so they have a program, a very interesting program of trying to do as much as possible locally. They are trying to do it. But at the end of the day, it's a business that needs to pay the workers, that needs to make a profit, and they cannot compete against foreign brands. For example, one coffee grower and coffee roaster locally in Panama, he goes for a little bit higher than sea level quality. He calls me and he says, "Hey, I think there's a contraband from a brand from Colombia for coffee. They are selling way too cheap in the supermarket. Panama has a 51% import tax." But then I told him, I don't think it's necessarily a contraband. If you see the price of sea market now, even with 51%, it's lower than the cost of production of Panama. Yeah? It's lower than what Café Durán can pay. And they go directly and compete against Café Durán, which is the Panamanian one. So how much longer can Café Durán continue buying primarily Panamanian coffee, and then after they buy from the farmers they are buying, they go outside? So of course, if we look at the story just from the $1,029 a pound or the $100 a pound in clutch coffee in California, a cup. If we read the stories, we will be confused on thinking, Panama,
It's got.
they are always
They're
record.
raining money in Panama.
Yeah, but it's not true.
It's not, no.
There's top heavy. There are top heavy situations right now in the coffee industry, but the rest of the industry, it's having difficulty. But
There's a gap in the middle, right? There's a gap from what I'm seeing. There's lots of commercial Merlin Presa from Clack. Do you guys know Merlin? She's from Nicaragua.
What was it?
Merlin Presa. She's the vice president of Clack, and she came on the podcast and she was talking to us about how there's an amazing amount of commercial coffee that's just not getting purchased. There's so much commercial coffee in Latin America, in Nicaragua, as well as other countries.
Because
small
the local
producer.
roasters buy from Nicaragua.
The Panamanian
low quality commercial coffee. The Panamanian local roasters.
So if we go back to our story and how we link to what's going on, of course, let's remember something. We have a big gap, but in that gap, a lot of specialty fell in the bottom. So there's a lot of specialty quality and specialty coffee that exists as specialty, and it's produced as specialty to a point. It goes to the bottom, knowing that we have in the top the high quality coffee from Elida Estate or Finca Deborah or these recognized farms. We can talk about La Palma del Tucán from a foreign perspective. And then we have in the bottom a bunch of specialty coffee that is still down there being paid $2.50 for what is specialty. So if we talk about how much it costs to produce commercial coffee, imagine how much it costs to produce specialty.
Right.
It increases by $1 minimum. So let's say maybe, and if we used to go an example from another country that is not Panama, maybe cheaper for the cost of labor and other situations, but it's not as cheap as you can go and buy for $2.35, $2.57, because the margin is so low that there will not be a way for them to reinvest in the farm, and eventually they will not be able to sustain that. So I think the situation, the crisis in coffee is too complicated to be fixed by us in the specialty market. For example, Specialty Coffee Association. I was talking in the Burp Summit with some people about the SEA working on their price crisis in coffee. The SEA needs to focus on helping those specialty producers that are struggling. There are several, probably the biggest majority. And the ICO should work along. Obviously, they should not forget about each other. They should try to collaborate with each other. But then the ICO should try to work with the C market. Because if the ICA tries to take over everything, there's not going to be, there's not a saying we say in Spanish, probably with the Spanish speakers, mucho abarca, poco aprieta, which means like if you try to hog everything at the same time, you're not going to be able to squeeze it.
Right.
So if you think about that way, maybe if we can do something about it, we can try to influence the specialty coffee market. Because once the specialty coffee market goes to a better margin for a better quality, for a better and higher demand from the different markets that can appreciate coffee, then the C market will move along. And it's the same way it happened here more than 25 years ago when, well, I was very young, but my father started the idea of how to build a coffee association that will help everybody in the community improve. I think he has a really cool story that he can tell you of how they jumped into specialty coffee in the moment it happened.
Well, it was linked to the quota system. When the U.S. just decided not to sign the agreement anymore, the International Coffee Agreement, they said, no, we're done with this. We have a lot of people who want to buy better coffees. We don't want to buy based on quota. We just buy our roasters to buy quality coffee. So the agreement was broken. So there was a big crisis in Latin America, everywhere, but I will concentrate in Central America. There was a big crisis. Everybody was started
What
losing.
year was this?
That was
1990, 1981.
1989 is when the agreement was broken, right?
Yeah, 1989 is the year the United States decided to get out of the agreement.
With the agreement. So as soon as the United States didn't sign the agreement,
it collapsed.
Quota
International Coffee Agreement.
The International Coffee Agreement collapsed. The quota system was no longer ruling. It was based on free
market.
Free market. So what happened? The price of coffee went down right away.
Especially in Panama.
It jumped like cliff.
There was no reason to come here.
How low are we talking around that time? That was the last big coffee price crisis, right?
It started in 89.90, and then it went down. It went down to 47 cents a pound. 47 cents, and continued like that for many. Years.
You know, I heard that people are still paying the debts that they had to take out to cover the prices now.
Our example, we lost a farm.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that.
We lost it with a big mill and everything. And so what happens is it went down. And then people started losing money, losing farm. Like in our case,
my grandfather built a state-of-the-art mill from what still is a very good mill. But back then, there was a state-of-the-art mill, and it was lost in this crisis.
So what happens is we sold the farm with the mill and everything else. It was the lower elevation farm. It was 1,100.
Let's try to go first on the moment you and your peers changed this.
Okay, but this is what happened. So the U.S. Said, wow, these guys are going on a crisis because
the USAID,
the United States, they say they are going on a crisis because we broke the agreement, all the coffee growers. So they
were feeling bad.
They were feeling bad.
Gee,
so
shocking.
They have the United States USAID, Agency for International Development, that is their main agency to help other countries in need or whenever they feel like they need to help them. So they said, let's do something for Central America. We are going to do a project, well-done project, where they were coming to the different farms, coffee farmers from Guatemala to Panama. They started in Guatemala. They had their headquarters in Guatemala. They were going to help you produce non-traditional agricultural exporters products in the same land where you were producing coffee. So you can use part of your coffee land and produce anywhere from raspberries, mini vegetables, asparagus, onions, Vidalia onions, like sweet onions, red onions. So we decided to go into that. So we formed an association called the Guild of Non-Traditional Agricultural Exporters that the United States AID pay for the whole Central America for a few years.
They pay for secretary, they pay for
they brought buyers, they brought technicians, they took us to different markets. They
had several committees inside. Many committees. The people for onions, sweet onions, the people for the for small vegetables.
Committees, everything well organized.
My father was a
consultancy, Chemonic, a big consultancy that the USAID hired together with some USAID officials. So it was going good, but we were struggling because I'm going to cut it short. In our case, we cut some trees down and started planting onions, and we were exporting good onions to the U.S., even via air and via ocean. Then Nicaragua started producing in Tebaco Valley, a huge flat valley, 1/3 the cost of production. And then our window, which was from 1st of April until 1st of June, at the 1st of June, the Georgia Vidalia evidence came online, so we didn't have any. It was shortened by Nicaragua, and the price was lower. So at the end, we decided not to continue with the exports, but we were selling then the onions in the local market.
All of the crop, like everything went.
All of the crop, yeah.
All the crop. So what happened?
Let me tell you something about the reality in Panama right now, and the reality in Panama. Let's just stay in Panama. Panama has right now a crisis in agriculture because Panama's land is limited. It's limited for quantity and it's limited in resources for production. from the things we mentioned before, or salary, cost of production, etc. So Panama in the global market has issues competing with commodities because we are not able to compete against Guatemalan or Colombians.
Because of yield or because of price?
Both.
Both.
Cost of production,
Land, our land here. For example, if you go to Costa Rica or you go to Colombia or Central America, they have big plateaus, high elevation plateaus, 1,600 meters, 1,500 meters, square kilometers and square kilometers
of plateaus.
Of plateaus. Here we have only, if you look at the Panamanian map, you look at the Baru volcano, we only grow coffee and like high elevation vegetables in the skirts of the Baru volcano. So we cannot mechanize.
Everything is steep.
Everything is steep.
So quality is not an issue, clearly. Quality is not the reason you can't compete. It's yield and price.
Okay. Was high and everything was higher here.
But some markets, even if quality is high in Panama, some markets are complicated to go into the niche of the high quality products.
Okay, like what specialty coffee does.
Coffee changed, yeah, but in other crops it's the same. So let's go back to the times where they were selling the local onions.
So we were selling the local, and the government of Panama decided to enter the World Trade Organization, WTO, the World Trade Organization. They wanted to join it, and then they also wanted to sign a free trade agreement with the United States. So I was representing the onion growers, and then we went to a meeting in Washington, D.C. I was representing some of the growers, and there were some other growers representing, and the government officials, the negotiators. So we went there, and one of the guys who was a coffee grower, and the family was coffee growers, it was La Florentina. The name was La Florentina. We were sharing a room in a hotel in D.C., and we were walking on the street with a bunch of other guys, and then he said, one of the guys said, let's go into the Starbucks store. So when we walked into the Starbucks store, this guy, he said, wow, this is my coffee, La Florentina. Look at the bag.
It was not even the bag. There was an art. There's in Panamanian.
Had the coffee sack, the burlap bag?
Not the burlap bag. So there are several Starbucks. Let's say maybe 10% of the Starbucks in the United States have the art that it's the mola. Mola, it's an Aboriginal Colombians and Panamanian from the Caribbean that they create this art that is very beautiful, and they use that with the name La Florentina, which was their farm. There's still a bunch of in the Starbucks, even though that coffee farm is not producing coffee anymore. And they go inside the Starbucks, and the guy sees this, and obviously there was no specialty coffee like it is now. Now it's a little bit more normal to see the name of Panama or the name of your family in a coffee shop in the consumer countries. But back then, and remember, they were getting out of a meeting that probably was frustrating meeting.
Because they were going to bring onions from the U.S. or from whatever, competing against us. So we were going to, disappear in the onion market. So when we got out of there, I said, God. The guy sees that, and he's so excited. He never stopped talking about until the end of the trip.
That was the.
But when I came back to Panama,
there were two farms in Panama, two farms that had a name. They had a name in Starbucks. It was La Florentina and San Benito. So, because they were from American families that had contacts in the United States, and they were able to get into Starbucks even during the quota system, get a little bit more for their coffee that the rest of the producers they were getting. They were already inside, they had a name for their farms. It was not just the commodity coffee. And then this guy goes into the Starbucks. That Starbucks was the biggest and best thing back then, in 1993, 94.
Yeah.
And then they see this and they are like, oh my God, this is my coffee. And my father next to him, he just says, wow, this is Panama, this is my friend's coffee. And I let him continue.
So when I came back to Panama, I called my friends that had been changing from coffee into non-traditional agricultural exporters.
The members of the same association.
The member of the Guild of Non-Traditional Exporters that expanding.
That they were probably doing the same or different type of crops, onions and other crops. But most of them were not through.
So I said, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is form the specialty coffee committee, because we had the onions committee, the fruits committee, the other vegetables committee. So we formed the specialty coffee committee because we already knew that SCAA, okay? So we formed the specialty coffee committee. So I started calling my friends and I said, guys, especially the board members of the Grex Plan, guys, let's form the committee, specialty coffee committee. So we called, all of us met, and then we called another guy.
So it was
Mr.
mostly 30 to 35 years old.
Yeah, I was like 32, 34. So I called the other guy.
All in Panama, right?
Yeah, all of them were. Most of them were traditional coffee families that were struggling and were part of this guild, trying to see what crop could help them.
So all of the ones that we first formed the committee were traditional coffee farmers like us, 6 of us. But there was another guy. I called Price Peterson.
Elder gentleman.
And elder gentleman, Price Peterson, he was eventually a board member of the CAA. So I called Price from La Esmeralda. You know La Esmeralda?
Yes.
Price.
The Peterson family, right?
Want to join the Grexpan? You are not a member of Grexpan, but you join Grexpan and you're a member of the committee. So Price came to the meeting, to the specialty coffee committee. And Price came over and we had the meeting, specialty coffee committee meeting for the 3rd time. And Price said, guys, no specialty coffee committee, Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. Let's form the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. So right away, we decided to form the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama. The 6 members of Grexpan plus Price, we formed the association.
And Grexpan
disappeared right away. And then we started moving into the specialty coffee little by little, but very, very, very dynamically, very well thought, because we already had experience with trying to get into the market and produce onions, whatever we never knew how to produce. So we were very knowledgeable in many things. How to get into how to write a report, how to get into a market, how to call this guy, how to connect with this other one.
Let's imagine this. Now, I see it as, is my father. I was a kid. I was just 5 years old back then. But I see it as a let's say it as an outsider, because I learned it later in my life. So imagine 6 young men trying to continue legacies from their family and trying to maintain the
100-year-old plantation.
100-year-old plantations, because most of them were in similar situations. And then in some of them, sadly, did not survive. Traditional, well-known coffee families from this original group, could not make it. And that's another story, but that's very sad. And then they are young, energetic, they are highly educated, but they are struggling and they are trying to get away. Of course, onion wasn't a passion for him, or the other crops for the others.
It's an extra revenue stream, right?
Yeah, he grew up in coffee. Any financial advisor will tell you, get out of it. Get the fuck out of this, because there's no way you are going to flourish in this. But they didn't, because there was a passion, a family legacy, and a reason why to continue, even if it sounded crazy. And now you call this guy, who is a scholar from the United States, who came along with his young kid to Panama several years before. He was not a traditional coffee grower. He was just a few years starting into coffee. He was mostly a milk producer. He still produces milk, who's Price Peterson. But, as an American man with the Panamanian kids, with a lot of knowledge, because he's a professor, he says,
and he's very smart too.
And he's very progressive minded for his age. A little bit different than his peers, like my grandfather, who's a very close friend with Price. They had a little bit more traditional mindset. Price comes along, joins the group, and kind of mentorship with the kids, and they form the first group of 7 members to start changing this. He's gonna tell you more details, but just as so people can have the picture. That was the first producing associations that signed a letter of intent with the Specialty Coffee Association of America, that is now the Specialty Coffee Association. So now you have an idea of how there's a group of, I can say, knowledge, very well-known guys or maybe heroes that in the late 80s-ish or maybe early 90s of coffee in the United States. Wayne Sorensen, and I think Peter Juliano was in that group, and we can mention also Geoff Watts, and this group of people that created the necessity of consumption for third wave. But the George Howell, but the first group that did the same from producing positioning from a producer's side was this group.
And not
well, she's a little bit like
she's the one who
called
the name,
but she's the one that how do you say, that motivated them to go into search of micro lots, or going directly to farms, no co-ops, go directly to the farmers, buy a specific lot, not the whole thing. And then these gentlemen were the first group that did the same from a productive point of view. The first time that started, they had to learn. How do they learn? And now my father can tell you, because he lived it.
We had to learn everything. We didn't know how to cup. Of course, when I went to Costa Rica with my dad, when I was a teenager, I used to see the guys cupping the coffee, my dad samples, but we didn't know how to cup, we didn't know what to roast, we didn't have anything. So we said, so what do we do next? So we started making calls. First call we made was our friend who was studying a PhD at the University of Hawaii. He was working for the University of Hawaii.
Let's remember how Kona coffee was the main crop of coffee.
Yeah, Kona coffee was so important. So he was studying a PhD on
the University of Hawaii.
On the University of Hawaii, working with the Kona coffee growers on how to eliminate a big problem, a huge problem that they had was nematodes.
Is that when they banned Ethiopian coffee from going in? Or Kenyan coffee? One of the two. You remember they banned it? It's still banned. You can't import it into Hawaii.
Yeah, they said of it. It's not because of that. The nematodes are in the soil.
The Roya, that was for the Roya, right?
The other one, the Broca.
Roya is different, isn't it?
Roya is the rose. Yeah. Roya is the rose. Broca is the butter bean. But this other one is the nematode. It's like a little worm in the roots. You can
Did that come from coffee from outside? Was it introduced? Was it an introduced species from outside?
No. If you plant in your garden anything, if you put fruits or vegetables, lettuce or whatever, or tomatoes, and your soil has nematodes, nematodes will come, little worms in the soil, tiny worms, microscopic worms will come into your root system and will ruin your crop.
So that it's part of the microbiome of the soil.
They were trying to eliminate it with chemicals in the soil. They couldn't eliminate it. So this friend of mine, what he did is he took the Robusta rootstock and pruned.
He grafted?
They crafted on the Robusta the typicals. They had typicals.
Yeah.
Now they have. So my friend, I called my friend, hey, Mario, what should we do? Because
we just formed an association.
We just formed the association. He said, the next thing you have to do is a competition, like they do here in Hawaii. Cupping competition. How do I do that? And then he's
learn how to cup.
Learn how to cup, learn how to roast.
Who taught you how to cup?
Pardon?
Wilford, who taught you how to cup?
What?
Who taught
you how to cup?
I know. Who taught you how to make cup?
Mario, through the phone.
Through the phone, Mario. So Mario said, okay, what you need to do. Of course, I had seen I had seen the other guy before. I saw it before. So Mario started sending me information. What you need to spend. But before that,
facts with the phone.
How fantastic!
You have to roast. And where do we roast a sample? We never
sample roaster.
Where do we get a sample roaster? But I remember one of my trips to the local office of the Minister of Agriculture, I had seen a sample roaster, and I remember it was a sample roaster because I had seen it in Costa Rica before. So I said, is that a sample roaster? The guy said, yes. So remember that when we went to Washington, D.C. to negotiate the
quota.
The quota. The World Trade Organization.
Oh, yeah.
And I went with one of the vice ministers, which was from Boquete, I asked him, hey, you know that there is a sample roaster that we need in the new association that we formed.
Remember,
we'll give it to you for free, he said.
We're talking about between 1994 and 1995. So this was happening very quick.
Very quick. So we took the sample roaster with cupping table.
Who taught you how to use it? Over the phone again?
No, in the phone, yeah, in the phone. And he said, start low, burn coffee, start low with a low temperature. But what you need to do is you need to get it in between, say, 8 and 12 minutes. Don't make it too dark. Don't too light. So we burned a lot of coffee until we learned how to do it. And then we said, okay.
They got a donated building for roasting of the coffee and the offices for the association.
We didn't get a donated building. We were allowed to come into the building of the Lions Club of Boquete. They all were coffee growers to everybody. Boquete was coffee growers. From traditional, my father was a Lion, Lions Club?
Yeah. We have them in Australia.
So we went in there. We moved with a roasting facility in one of the corners of the big building, and we started burning coffee. But we
started burning coffee.
You cannot stay here anymore. Nicely, look for another place. I'll help you look for. So we found another place where nobody was there. So we started roasting coffee there, and then we said, okay, now we have to make the competition. So,
wait, before you tell me about the competition, I want to ask you something that about tasting. Did you at that point, so you've started roasting, you've started cupping, all of that's happening, did you understand how the end consumer was drinking your coffee?
We didn't know anything. We knew,
wow.
We knew it as a commodity.
Yeah.
Okay?
And this is a problem that's being faced right now today, right? We have coffee farmers all over the world that have never tasted an espresso. They have never tasted a pour over. They've never tasted.
That is so common.
That's one of the biggest problems.
That's the biggest problem. So I'm going to jump and I'm just going to give you one of our, what I think that is one of the tools.
But don't go too much because we're going to go there later.
Because we train people so well on cupping coffee, on doing everything. We have a team of cuppers that are so,
including us too, we are about 8 or 9.
We cup so many times, and we are calibrated. We know what our clients need. Like today, we have some guys from France that it's not the right time to come, but we cup with them. So going back,
now we are more into
then we started cupping the coffee. Oh, this is how coffee should
competition.
Taste. Oh, high elevation coffee tastes like this. Lower elevation like this, and go again. So until we decided to do our first Best of Panama cupping competition.
What year was this?
1998.
1998.
That was following the advice from Mario that's what the Hawaiians were doing.
Uh-huh.
And because coffee wasn't popular, Hawaiians were doing it with art competitions. So they wanted to do it with an art competition during a fair, a festival that happens every year in Panama. That is in Boquete, that is called the Flowers and Coffee Fair. The Flowers and Coffee Fair has like amenities for the kids, like I don't know how to mechanical amenities. There's like artists.
Like a carnival?
It's like a carnival, yeah. A music, etc. And they did it during that moment with the art competition because 1998, nobody thought they were gonna come. But let's go back into in a year before. My father and his colleagues decided to learn about coffee, and this is one of the things that goes together with tasting coffee because you go to other countries and then you start learning. So my father and his colleagues decided to go into a trip to Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
Intercafe still exists in November. Still, they don't have, they didn't have much money. The association was, starting. So they rented a van among several coffee producers, 10 coffee producers, going a van to Costa Rica. I just remember as a kid listening to the stories and laughing out loud.
Okay.
So in that Sinter Cafe, something very interesting happened that helped them boost the association a little bit.
So we went there and we said, okay, the executive director of the SCAA is going to be here with the board members.
They had a booth.
They had a booth and everything else. So we walked into
in Costa Rica, 1990.
That was in Costa Rica in November when they do Sinter Cafe. I said, excuse me, we have just formed the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama a few months back, and we understand your next convention is in New Orleans in April of next year, a few months from now. We want to have a booth at that convention, but we don't have any money. Right away, he didn't even take 5 minutes. We'll give it for you. We'll give you the space for free. So they gave us a. So we here in Panama, then we started building the hardware, the cousin the store. We took it over with us, and then we set up a booth, Panama booth, with a brochure and everything, like a handshake, the brochure and everything else. So we went there, and about 10 of us went.
The brochure said,
"You want to know
a secret?
You want to know a secret? Panama's coffee." And then we described the coffee and all that
and
stuff.
And it was me. It's not only El Canal, there's also the Highlands, and the Highlands we grow coffee. That was in 1997. They had a lot of issues building that because they had no money, nowhere. So they were working each other. All the members along with their families, and the whole booth fell down because it wasn't a well clip. They had to a king. Then they made a Kinko's copy. My uncle, my father's younger brother. They made a king. They went to Kinko's. He made a copy. Then the copy had a line because it was the only brochure left. Because the rest of the brochures
they had folded it and they were making photocopies.
Exactly.
And then they tried to.
Tell me you still have a copy of that. Please tell me you have one for the museum.
Actually, the people from the documentary have it because they are animating it.
Make sure you get it back.
No, we are gonna get it back.
That's important history, that one, right?
No, that's it. You wanna know a secret? Panama's coffee. 3 years later, we had a different brochure, no longer a secret.
So, do you know about the Kona coffee story mixed with Panamanian coffee?
No, I'm really, it's really interesting. I'm very fortunate in the sense that this podcast has exposed me to how much I don't know about the history of coffee. And we got someone coming on the podcast in a few weeks who's just releasing a book about the history of coffee. And I'll send you his details on Instagram. So his book launches this week, and nobody knows about him. Nobody knows about this guy, and he's a historian, and he spent the last year or 2 years researching the extensive history of coffee from around the world. So it's coming out this week. I'll send you both details. He's sending me a copy of the book this week. And so it's going to be wonderful for us. We're going to help him promote it for free because we want people to have access to this kind of information.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that I put you guys in contact so that he can get a copy of the book.
I'm also lost. I need to read this because there are so many things.
There's so much, isn't there? And this podcast is a platform for us to gather stories, like your story, so that people can understand. Like, hey, listen, like this coffee that sold for $1,029. Stop thinking that you have a judgment that you can put a pin in the wall about what it looks like today. There's a historic story that went for generations that led to this. And these stories are important. They're almost like tribal things that we need to tell each other so that we can learn from them, that we can grow from them, that we can start. Because I believe that right now, there's another coffee crisis going on. And it's not just a price crisis. The coffee crisis that I believe is going on is a brand identity crisis for coffee. Mm-hmm. And I believe that this is the crisis that has led to the price crisis. I believe that the crisis that we're experiencing is that a lot of people that you talk to that consume coffee don't understand that it comes from a tree.
Exactly. We have to go to the
consumer.
To the consumer, so they understand that coffee is much more than just a commodity.
Exactly.
That is supposed to have one flavor.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that needs to be done from producers, roasters,
Our
intermediaries.
association is 23 years old, Specialty Coffee Association.
That's very new.
And we have been doing so many things when we started copying the competition. And then the next year...
No, but let's stay in the because remember,
the competition,
the event, the Specialty Coffee Association event in New Orleans. Remember, these type of things have very, so this type of moments, like being able to get a sponsorship to go to the SCAA convention, it's something that people don't think about it, but just impulse a whole industry, and it can be a game changer for the future of these growers to try to impulse themselves, and then everybody will follow along. So there's a motivation coming out of this. They build their booth. They put the Kinko's copy brochure with a line in the middle in the booth, and then something was going on parallel. Michael Norton, right?
And Michael Norton?
He was a person that was buying coffee in the United States, and he was selling Kona coffee.
He was an importer.
He was an importer selling Kona coffee. Kona coffee for a very good price. And Kona coffee was
selling the Kona coffee to the roasters in the U.S.
Everybody
it's still a very good price. This year it fetched $30 a pound on average.
No, but he was selling at a better price. And he had a better price for Kona coffee, and it was very hard to compete against him. Nobody knew what was going on. Then he got ratted out, and there was an investigation on him, and they realized he was getting Panamanian coffee and mixing it in Kona bags and selling it as Kona coffee. So
wow.
in that moment,
one of his employees.
So he didn't even know about it? One of his employees told this. Wow.
Told somebody. And you know what this guy is doing? To one of the roasters that were buying coffee from, you know what he's doing? We're getting coffee from Panama. We're changing it from the Panamanian bags into the Kona bags, and we're shipping it to you. And we are doing that with everybody, and we have been doing it for 2 years. So
he was investigated.
He was investigated. He went to jail.
He went to jail
Norton
for several years.
Jail.
Now he's around. He's like
now
he's back.
What's his name?
Norton. Michael. I think that Michael is his first name.
Norton is his last name.
Norton is his last name, and just Google
Kona coffee with Panama coffee or something like that.
Kona coffee crisis, Panama, Kona coffee, Panama, Norton, and it will be in Google because he went to jail and everything else.
Okay, so this is what happened.
The Konas were very, very upset. They decided that they weren't gonna sell any more coffee in the U.S. or to whoever.
The Konas even tried to blame our friend Mario, and then Mario had to
from the Hawaiian University.
Yeah, because he was living there, and he was a Panamanian, so they were like, a Panamanian.
Did you have anything to do with that?
Panamanian working with farmers.
So
he had to prove that he had nothing to do with that. And then they started investigating, and they say, oh, so you are doing that to the producer in Panama. The producer, no, I'm selling to a Costa Rican importer. And the Costa Rican importer, I don't know, I'm selling to the importer in the United States. I don't know what's going on, what he's doing with the coffee. So this was happening in the 90s. So the news broke more or less during that convention. So there was a use of that news in a positive way. And Panama got a piece of the news, a copy of the newspaper, put it in the booth and saying, like, hey, it's actually Panamanian coffee, the one that you think is so
Our
high.
Panamanian coffee is selling for the C market or maybe a little bit higher, while the Kona coffee is selling for, let's say the C market was whatever, 80 cents a pound. And the Kona coffee is selling for $8 a pound.
Yeah.
And people didn't notice the difference.
Yeah.
So our quality.
And then they
high.
realized that they're actually drinking Panamanian coffee that they're paying 80 cents for on the sea market.
Yeah.
Best kind of marketing, huh?
It's very interesting, the thing with Kona. Kona is a key member in the story of specialty coffee in Panama, because as I was mentioning, they learned the competition. They followed Kona steps to do the local competition for copying.
My friend in Kona, and then I have met all the Kona. They go to the conventions, by the way.
Now, Kona was an example because Kona Kona is part of the United States.
Yeah.
So being part of the United States makes it easier for marketing purposes and for growing conditions, for research and all
the tourists, they go to Kona and come back with their bag and then they buy Kona.
Help me understand something. Kona seems like a really successful marketing exercise, right? Because I've tasted Kona coffee and how do I say this? I've tasted your coffee, and every time I drink your coffee, I feel like my heart is getting a hug, right? I don't taste that with a lot of
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. But
Kona is a good coffee, but it has to do with the marketing and being in the United
that's what I'm saying. And this is my point. When your average price that they're selling coffee per pound green is...
Remember something. What are the coffees that sold for the highest without necessarily attaching it to quality? Jamaica, Dutch Colony, Kona, USA, Yauco Selecto from Puerto Rico, which is also part of the United States, and let's say maybe Kopi Luwak that has some influences from the Dutch. So most or less
Blue Mountain, all that kind of stuff, right?
Like the wines have more successful crops than the wineries, the grapes, the vineyards, than us, the coffee growers. The coffee growers are mostly in Latin America or Africa or Asian countries we are mostly third world countries.
Right. So wages are low.
There's a lot more obstacles in marketing, in research, in government help, in promotion of our crops, in education for our own people. So this made it harder, but not impossible. So maybe that's one of the reasons why my father and his peers had an advantage. They had an edge. Of course, there are a lot of factors that help. That is about the positioning of the country with the microclimates and the terroir, but the education level the group that formed SCAP had was good enough for them to feel confident on taking decisions, even though they were in a crisis, even though they were mostly going broke, even though there was not enough resources. There was the main resource of the education and the knowledge that helped in many ways. Being able to talk in English, being able to read and research, being able to learn, that helped a lot. So now I can ask you to continue to talk about the creation of the first Best of Panama competition, because that was one of the moments where they learned how to cop, trying to calibrate with judges.
Okay, so what happens is we did the Best of Panama copying competition, and from there on, all the growers said, wow, this is fascinating. People start talking about the quality of the coffee, how it tastes. This one was effective. The other one was very, the acidity was very high with citrus notes or whatever. So we started copying. Everybody was copying in the association. We grew from 7 members in 1 year to 15 members to 25 members. So, and then we started just going around copying from farm to farm. I went to your farm. You went to his farm.
There was
collaboration. I'm going to bring 3 samples that I find them interesting. So we did that. So, and then we did a couple of other competitions.
And discussions
in 2004. Line copying.
No, bro, don't jump so high, because there's a key moment. So Best of Panama, so I'm going to shorten it out. The Best of Panama thing. The Best of Panama in 1998, even the president of the SCAA back then came as a head judge, and a group of judges that came with the SCAA to evaluate or judge the competition. The competition was a success up to a point, because there was a lot of feedback that the producers got from the judges.
Were they surprised? I gotta ask, at the time, Wilford, when you guys were getting this, you're in the room, you're getting all this feedback from the judges for the first time. Are you shocked? Are you expecting it? Like, what does it feel like?
Oh, it was a totally different and interesting experience.
I can only imagine.
We had never caught only in between us with somebody with knowledge from roasters, people from importers that come from all over the world. So, and then they were teaching us after the competition every day. They were teaching us, okay, look, this is what you're looking for a coffee. This sample here is what you're looking for. Clean, sweet cup with some notes of fruits or whatever.
If you got a bad score, there was a reason why. So you could learn from that.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit too earthy. Maybe the humidity is too high. This one is baggy. Tastes a little bit.
So they were giving you reference points.
Yeah. And they do.
They were giving us, and then during the year, some of them came back to help us from the SCAA and continue.
Like
Rick
Reinhardt, he made training for the judges and the growers.
Rick Reinhardt, people like that. So we continue with the competition. We continue to do it ourselves.
In 2001, there was a big change. In 2001, the online auction was implemented.
First time the online auction in Panama, 2001.
The 3 years before that, it was a competition for feedback and bragging rights.
Who drove that? Did you guys decide that was going to happen, or did an external organization say to you, this is what you got to do?
Good question.
So what happened is,
Panama is the only country that has
3 years of competition. So we said, 3 years of competition, okay, we won. So what else?
We learned already.
What happened? So Brazil did an auction, online auction, based on a platform that Malcolm's son had built in the SCAA. Okay, he said, "I'm gonna build a platform." He was like the IT guy, so he built a platform very well made, and they ran the first Brazil auction. Trucy Spindler was there, and George Howard was there. They went to Brazil. Okay. Then the online auction took place, and then we said, hey, why don't we do an online auction? It was 2001. So we called the SCAA, we talked to Malcolm. Malcolm said, okay, guys, let's do the same thing that we did for Brazil for you guys, for Panama. So that was our first online auction in 2001. Our coffee sold the highest price, $4.80 a pound, 6 times higher than the market.
Another farm.
A neighbor farm.
So, let's say something quick. Panama organized their own competition. SCAP, the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama, organized their own coffee competition and later organized their own auction system. We never got into Cup of Excellence. That's a longer story for another podcast. But we never joined it because the decision from them was to continue doing it on ourselves. And we still do. I still form part of the association in some ways, organizing these events, and we are capable of doing a successful event. But then 2001 was, let's say, 2001 was a huge year because there was some way to add value to the cost, $4.80. Wow. The average was lower, was around 180, but still way higher than the fee market. And let's jump into 2002. That was the first year Elida Estate won the Best of Panama. First place, $2.37. So imagine
in 2002, $2.30 a catuay from Elida. What's catuay from Elida?
17 years later, 2019,
wow.
A coffee from the same farm wins the Best of Panama and gets 1,029. So there is a lot of factors involved.
It's the history there. Like it gives you the understanding of it.
Yeah.
Like it's, again, I say, 4 generations to become an overnight success.
Yeah. But this is the key moment, this auction. But the auction starts well for 80, then goes down a little bit for 237. Then goes all back again the next year for another neighbor farm, $3.06. It's going well. It's selling higher than the C market. It's still low, but it's better.
Is it profitable at that point? Even though it's a little bit higher than the C market. The C market's not profitable, but was that?
Well, those auction prices were getting to be some kind of profitable, but not enough to, let's reinvest here.
Right. Cost of production?
Programs. Yeah.
Was it covering the cost of doing business or just the cost of production?
The auction was, the average price of the auction was probably cost of production.
Right, yeah. Not the cost of covering loans or anything like that.
we're getting $1 some a pound on the average.
Right.
And the market was sometimes, I think that the lowest when we did the auction was like 60 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, 60 cents. So we were 2 times higher than that, even 3 times in some years until 2004.
So let's think about something. We have an auction. The auction, it's getting high prices in the top, fairly good prices in the middle. So it's calling the attention, adding value to the product that is not directly adding the value of your crop, but it's getting to some, but it's low and it's minimum percent. 2004, Daniel Peterson, the son of Price Peterson, just coming back from studying in a coffee course in California, where he was not in a coffee course, he was doing an internship for a San Franciscan roasters, where they taught him a little bit about copying, and one of the things that he had was that he was able to taste other origins. And then he goes into the farm that his father just acquired. So there's this story. This is the last part that I'm going to take a little bit of time. This story has a little bit of serendipity, luck, but a lot of research and patience. Father gets a farm, 1997. He gets a farm because the farm gets repossessed by the previous owner. Mm-hmm. By 1999, Daniel comes in. He gets the farm in between the years. 1999, Daniel comes in. 1998, Daniel comes in. Recently learned a little bit more about coffee. Sees a bunch of varieties in just 1 hectare, more than 15 varieties. 1999. So what are the things? Look, they got the farm that was repossessed by a producer that did not care about its crop. So he didn't care about what variety he has in. Second, lucky strike. The fact that there was the weather effect of La Nina, right? That affected most of the coffee varieties in that specific hectare, and a few varieties stayed with some
fungi killed many of the different varieties in that lot.
Just be careful that, yeah.
Okay, and then he realized this specific variety had something special about the fact that he was able to stay with the rain.
Did he know what it was? Had he seen it before?
No. So So this is I'm gonna paraphrase him. He didn't know what it was, but he knew that it was called geisha because one time an agronomist that knew about it was just mentioning about the varieties, and he said, this is geisha. Oh, the weird one is geisha. You remember geisha because geisha is a name. It's kind of odd, geisha has an ornament.
Yeah, especially in Panama. There's not any geishas around.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah. So he remembered them. And then he was tasting the coffee. Back then it wasn't a clear wow, but it was kind of something different. And then he remembered the name. He knew there was something different, but the altitude where that coffee was planted wasn't clear enough to realize that it was wow. Now remember, altitude is key for quality of coffee because of the temperature. So they had a lot that was empty because it was colder. It was about 150 or 200 meters higher. So they replanted that one specifically because of the name, the rain, the taste. So there's the patience here, the wanting to learn, the research about what the varieties were going on. And they replanted that up there. In my mind, seeing it from a younger generation, I think maybe the timing, the correct timing, the serendipity here is the fact that it was Daniel and not his father.
Right.
Or it was his generation. So my father and I, we are 30 years apart. Daniel is in the middle, 15 years. So maybe he wasn't in a hurry. He didn't need to feed kids. He didn't. Stuff like that made him be a little bit more careful.
Open-minded.
Not taking decisions right away because there was a necessity to make money. So eventually, later, those coffees that were replanted on the higher part of the farm, he got the first crop. He tasted it, and he realized, whoa, this is different. He wasn't sure if it was good or bad. He knew it was different. Luckily, Rick Reinhardt was in Boquete for a cupping course with other producers, and he says, Rick, I need you to taste this cup. And he tasted it, and Rick says, this tastes like an Ethiopian coffee I brought for the course, but it's much more cleaner. What is much more flowery? And Daniel says, I don't know if submitting in the competition or not, because judges are not expecting this. He's like, you gotta do it. The other producers told them, hey guys, last year you were last place.
God told him that.
There's nothing that you can go below that. Go in.
Do it. Put it all on the hat. Put it all in.
Did it. And they were nervous. Daniel was nervous. And then he started seeing the reaction. And obviously the competitions are blind, but because the coffee was so different than the rest, it was clear that it was going to be theirs. And he started seeing the reactions of the judges, and immediately he started feeling motivated, happy.
Yeah.
And they won the Best of Panama, no surprise. And then
I've spoken to people who were in the room when that happened, and they said that they'll never forget that feeling of tasting that coffee. They knew that this was going to create a whole new industry. And they just said that feeling that they got the first time that they tasted that, they knew this was something special.
Well, my uncle he's a roaster. He was a judge there, and he scored it 100, and his score got eliminated because it was too high. But
because the high score was eliminated, standard
always,
deviation,
yeah.
low score, his 100 point was eliminated.
So you can imagine how was the reaction there. And then the auction comes in, a lot of hype in the auction. And you can tell more a little bit about that.
Remember, we already had, this was the fourth auction. The first three auctions, the minimum starting price was $1 a pound. So the bidders, online bidders, codes, nobody knew who was bidding, $1.01, $1.05, $1.07. 7 hours later, $4.80. Second auction, same thing, $1, $2, $3, $5, $6, $2.37, $3. That year, 2004, the auction opened. 2 or 3 minutes later, the auction froze. You couldn't see anything moving. It was froze. All the numbers in all the
website crashed?
It crashed, yes. Crashed. Okay? Let's use your word. Wow, what happened? It crashed, so we took the fund. Malcolm, what happened to the auction? It crashed. He said, no, guys, take it easy. There is a hacker. A hacker hacked into the system, and I'm going to just fix this. 5 minutes later, the auction is online again, normal. And then he calls us. Malcolm says, guys, there is no hacker. Somebody wants this coffee. They bid $10. Not 1 cent, not 2 cents, $10 for that geisha coffee. So they bid $10 the first 3 minutes of the auction, $10. Right away. So that year the coffee finished at $21.
Well, I remember being just 14 years old, and I remember the excitement there was. My father wasn't the owner of the farm, but he was excited.
Wow. We were so excited, all of us. Wow, incredible. Because it was a good feeling for all of us.
Yeah, it's a camaraderie, right? Like, of course, you're all separate businesses, but you all want to celebrate for each other. This is what comes from being you're raised in a community-based culture. Like, yes, you all have your own success to look for, but you understand the struggles of all the other farms. You know the history, you know the generational struggles that have been encountered. So their win is a win for everybody.
There was still struggle.
Exactly like that.
But there was still struggle in the moment. But in the struggle, you could see the light at the end of the tunnel of, wow, this could be it. This could be the way out.
Of us next day, like me, the price was, before the auction, the price was revealed for the geisha at 9 p.m., 21 hours on a Saturday. And the next day I went to look for geisha seeds or geisha trees where they had been. So I bought a bunch of geisha seeds and I did my seedlings. And the next day, a year later, when you have the plant of the right height, I planted it in 2005 in our farm. The first geisha plant that we planted was in 2005 because of Daniel's discovery.
Yeah.
And everybody, most of people did that. Okay, and a lot of people in Panama have geisha. And if you look at the specialty coffee in Panama, the specialty coffee in Panama is an example. Like Junior was saying, here in Panama, cattle ranchers, their kids don't work for their dad. My age, their kids don't work. Vegetables, they want to abandon the vegetables. Any other agricultural industry in Panama is suffering, except for a few like the new hydroponic kind of technology.
Yeah, but that's
in coffee, the new generations, like his generation, they came from there. Even the generation was lost. Like my generation, from many other, they went to the city to work.
Well, they want to go become doctors and plastic surgeons and work in
Exactly.
stem cells and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. I came back to the farm. We were successful thanks to all the things that we have done,
But you did a lot of hard work, Wilford. Like this didn't come from just luck.
Exactly. A lot of hard work. We did a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
We lost the farm. We sold it to, as a matter of fact, to price. Remember I told you that we sold the farm because we couldn't pay the farm.
And we sold it to him because the bank was knocking on the doors and Price was wealthier from back the days, and he was friends of my grandfather. He is a friend of my grandfather. And we are all friends. The families are friends. As a matter of fact, I saw him a few hours ago. Let's jump into a few years. So in 2004, $21, first geisha. Wow. Esmeralda had the advantage because they started before. 2 years after 2006, $50. Wow, double. Then 2007. Again, something happened with the auction. You want me to tell it? You want to tell it?
Okay, what happened to the auction in 2007 is that every time a coffee sells, we go, hey.
Every time it goes high.
Even time it goes higher, hey. Because we have a bunch of coffee. Like this year, we have 49 coffees. And then sample number 2242, it hasn't sold yet. So as soon as it
gets a piece.
Hey. So, and then we celebrate big time when we break last year's record. So the year before, 2006
to 25.
$50, right?
With 25 cents, yeah.
With 25 cents. So 48, 49, 50, 51, yeah, 51. We broke last year's record. Yeah. And then with 60, 70, 80, 90. Yeah, wow. We're going to the 100. Look. And then $99, it crashed. The system
really?
crashed. It had, normally the auctions lasted up to 8 hours, maybe even more sometimes. But 6 hours is a normal. It was 3 hours after it started. It crashed. Malcolm, what happened? What happened this time? He said, Malcolm, I'm sorry, guys. I have never thought that the coffee was going to be about 2 digits. So the software is made
it wasn't programmed.
It was a security measure.
So it became obsolete. So he had to finish up over the phone with the two bidders. He put the name from the coach that he had.
Uh-huh.
So, X, you want to bid higher? Yeah. So it finished at $130. $130 like
and then jumped. In 2010, another record, 170. Then in 2011, the implementation of natural coffee. Natural coffee was
a new category we put.
A new category.
The other category was only white.
Then one of the advantages the Specialty Coffee Association of Panama has is the fact that they can change quick.
They're adaptive.
Small farms, progressive people. They talk about with each other. They discuss. They scream at each other. But at the end of the day,
you pick up the phone. You talk to each other. You don't have to do all the red tape. You can just make it happen.
Exactly. And then you go for natural processing coffee. Started being implemented in Panama a few years back for commercial purposes. My father exported some of the first, or maybe the first, Catuay natural. We had no geisha being in the farm back then. One guy came into Panama. He was a roaster back then. Now he's a producer here in Panama. He's not a member of SCAP, but he's a producer here. But back then he was just a buyer. He came with the idea that he learned in Ethiopia to produce natural coffees that were high quality. This guy is a proxy. He's the 90 plus owner. He comes and he talks to a few producers. One of the producers, my father, he says, I want to buy natural process. Let's buy the natural process. Let's do it this way. They did it that way. Then he said, at the end, he couldn't buy the coffee. So my father goes into a few out buyers from the United States. To make the story short,
guys that were buying white coffee from me.
He tells to know his name. Mike Perry from Clutch Coffee.
Oh, yeah. I'm having Heather on the podcast soon.
Yeah. So Mike Perry, Clutch Coffee. Then you have Jeff Taylor from PT's Coffee, now Bird Rock 2, but back then just PT's Coffee.
Yeah.
And a few months later, a year later, just opening their new roastery was the guy from Burf, Colby from Burf Coffee. So they were like kind of the beginning of the natural processing buy. And then natural processing started to become a thing for a few producers, and they were getting positive results. At the beginning, the judges were saying, no. You are not going to put...
We were telling the judges, in the next competition, we're going to put natural. No.
Do you know, I got to tell you, coming from Australia, we loved natural coffees in Australia. We've always loved natural coffees in Australia. And then when I came to America, everyone was like, no natural coffees. We hate natural coffees. I'm like, why don't you like natural coffees? We love natural coffees in Australia. And here, they hated natural coffees. Couldn't understand it. We loved them.
But it's getting better in the US now.
Well, people like Mike, Jeff, and Bev, they say, let's try something different. Let's try anything. So that we want to be different than the other roasters and whatever, the Stumptowns or the Intelligentsia or whoever. So they try the natural coffee.
Mike, as a matter of fact, is a fan of the wash. But
he's a fan of the wash.
But he's a businessman. He understands their market.
Right.
So he buys them and he believes in them. So the natural processing, the judges told them that.
No, don't put natural.
For a few years.
And they convinced a few growers and members of SCAP.
The growers were scared. No. Let's not teach the judges.
So in the board meetings, okay, next year, Peso Panama, are we going to put the natural category? No, we're not. Until the third year, we decided to go ahead and put the natural category in the Best of Panama. Natural category, different than what? So you price the wash and you price the natural. Of course, the geisha won in the natural category. And in the wash category also, well, as a matter of fact, we jumped. The wash were already two different categories, the traditional varieties and the geishas. Because the geishas were, if you put 5 geishas, all 5 geishas were perfect.
They're all going to win. 1 to 5 is going to be geishas.
So we decided to separate the categories of what? Then the natural, 3 years later, the natural category, all of them together. So a geisha won first place, second place, and three places, geisha, right? Comes the auction. First place pay geisha, the natural. Second place pay geisha, the natural. Third best paid was the only washed song. So there were 2 natural geishas. La Colga y Pachi. They were the first 2 highest paid. And the third one was the Esmeralda geisha wash. Which was the king back then. The only one. Got third best paid, and it was a wash. And in the traditional, which is Catuai, Bourbon, Típica, Caturra, all these varieties. 5, I think it was the 5 top highest price were natural. Yeah. And then the 6, they double. Averagely, since that year to today, the price of natural coffees for traditional categories are double the price of traditional wash categories.
Wash coffees.
In a long range average. Sometimes it's higher, but it's double.
So innovation, that's an innovation that we have done. it's not an innovation per se to produce natural.
But the innovation to put it in the
competition, because if you see the Cup of Excellence, they are putting naturals now in honey, but they were on aim at one category.
So they still do a one category final.
And then we have found out from the buyers that buy in our auction and come to our farms and talk to us, that they trust what we do, because people say, why don't you ask the buyers what you should do? And then at the end we decide, okay,
let's do it.
Let's our gut feelings, let's do it.
Right.
Category.
Now they know how to cup. Back then it was going to be more complicated.
Well, but we already knew how to cup it took us years to cup, because we were cupping quite often. Okay, so it's just a matter of practice. So, and then we said, this coffee is good, man. This coffee is better than the boring. It's not that it's about coffee, but boring white that you can get anywhere in the
everywhere has it.
But this one, Central America doesn't have it. Colombia doesn't even allow you to export.
Yeah.
Now I think that they do somehow.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with the natural, and we have been very successful with the natural as far as the association.
So
in our case too.
Let me tell you a story. So the Esmeralda people didn't believe in the natural, so they submitted a second grade geisha with another name. It was not the Esmeralda.
They didn't put the Esmeralda. It's in our site. It's in the SCAP site. All the
I can link you that.
Yeah, please do.
SCAP. No. SCAP the middle line, Panama.
Yep.
.com, and then you go to previous auctions, and you can see all those auctions.
So it was called, they call it Colga.
Colga A.
They didn't want to call it.
They didn't even want their own brand on it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to
had a beautiful washed geisha that was auctioned lower than that second grade geisha. They got like $88, and the one got like $75. Then immediately the natural started creating a higher demand. So the natural started in the auctions creating a higher demand. Now let's say something brief. Remember, the auction prices are not market prices, but the auction market adds value to market prices. Back then, top coffee sold for $2.37, even if it was the first price. Now normalization of coffee goes for $4.55 a pound for traditional varieties, can go to $7-8 a pound if you do things very well and you have a high reputation of quality and consistency. And geisha coffees can go from 20, 25, all the way to 50, 75, depending on different factors. But this addition of value is pulled up by this auction. And these auctions are pulled up first by the geisha and then by the natural processing. And same is passed indirectly through other auctions in other parts of the world, that you see that every year honeys and naturals from Costa Rica, for example, a Costa Rican honey geisha sold for $300 last year. So stuff like that is happening. It's not as high as Panama, but then the Costa Rican coffee gets more value. And then
no one has benefited because of the geisha.
The world of specialty coffee has benefited. Now, like Will Young in his speech said this year, we need to find ways to link this to the 25 million producers around the world.
Exactly.
There are ways. He's a very optimistic man. His speech, you should read it in your podcast, entire speech.
I can't wait to have Will on the podcast. It's happening sometime this year, fingers crossed. We're just trying to find a time when he's not slammed and I'm not slammed. Everyone's busy, but he's got so much going on right now.
At every competition, we get so nervous before the announcement.
Let's talk a little bit about that and the competition. The competition every year has brought more and more people. Everybody wants to be a judge. We cannot name everybody a judge. So this year we had 21 judges, but we had what we call special guests. We have another
buyers,
70 people that are as important as the judges, who came to go to all the governors they could here in Panama,
cup all the
coffees they could prior to the or during, because there was not judges, and stay in the farm here to meet the growers.
But they also come to samples for the Press of Panama.
And they also come to same. We have several tables, parallel tables. We have another 20 tables for the guest. We call it the guest coppers. Those coppers come back and they buy the coffee from the different growers. And in addition to that, this year we had 162 people who registered online for the auction. They received the 49 samples so they can taste Catuay natural, traditional wash, pacamaras, and then the geishas in their own lab, cup it, and then they decided to bid or not to bid, and to say, oh, look, this coffee is very interesting. I'm going to see if I can meet this grower. So all this competition and auction has pulled a lot of people to Panama, to a small producing country, to a growing area that you drive from one end to the other one in 2 hours to the mountains, from the farthest away growers.
15,000 people live here.
Not more than 2.5 hours, driving slow, to good roads and going to farms. So it's something that we have managed to pull because of all this, the innovation. We have a lot of innovators that came.
Yep.
Jamison Savage. They are from Finca Deborah. They are guys who came and invested when the
my friend Toby, Finca Santa Teresa.
Toby.
Shout out to Toby. Toby and Grant Fleming.
Yeah. So I see Toby all the time. I saw him in
William Booth as well.
Where did I see Toby? Did I see him in the convention in Japan? Wherever I see Toby, I say, Toby, so you are not coming to Panama anymore because I think that you did something in Panama and you're going to go to jail. So he's a good friend of mine.
It's too much whiskey, mate. Too much whiskey.
So you're a friend of Toby.
Who knows where he is right now? I think he's hiding somewhere in France.
Well, the competition, the whole thing of the competition starts now with the naturals and the categories. And let's jump a little bit quicker. We can mention, for example, the Esmeralda people. Then 2 years after that, they decided to go directly into natural coffee, and they got $350 a pound for that natural geisha. And then later they got $601 actually for a natural geisha. And well, during those years, going back to our farm, we were very, very successful on the traditional categories, always placing our Catuais, naturals and washed. Then we decided to stop competing with washed. Our natural Catuais were always placed in the top three. Some years we got 5th place because there were 3 geishas that pulled everything down. First, second, third geisha, and then first Catuay, then Acaturra, and then second Catuay that was ours. But it's okay. That's part of the competition. So we were always placing in the top. We are doing good, improving every year. It was a huge passion from my father that he later passed to me also. Passion of copying as many times as possible to get the best possible lot for competition. The processing for copying was our team. You know, my goal, I go to the future now because we've been going to the past, and I go to the future. My goal is to represent Panama for the second time in the World Brewers Cup Championship. But if I win the national, that is going to happen in January, when I go to the world, my biggest threat is the fact that I'm not going to be able to attend most of the cuppings previous to the Best of Panama because it's going to be mice in the World Championship. So that's one of my biggest stresses, that I'm not going to be able to be part of the tasting. But my father and his team are excellent.
You're all calibrated, right? So you'll be able to rely on...
Very well calibrated.
But me mentioning this, in 2014, the first year we compete with geisha coffee. We did a 3rd place, then a 5th place in the other category. Then the next year, similar, 3rd and 4th in 2015. 2016, 1st place was the first time we got a 1st place, and a record in points, 94.16. That record is been broken 3 times, and the 3 times it's been broken by our coffee, 2018 and 2 times in 2019. So our own record is being broken 4 times by us. And now you know the prices part, and I don't want to focus on the price part because I don't want people to think we're talking about only money. It's talking about the accomplishment, of the passion. Panama has a beautiful terroir, a beautiful microclimate that comes from the positioning of our country. That is, instead of going north to south, it's going to from west to east. Caribbean Ocean in the north, Pacific Ocean in the south, and then we have in the middle a mountain range that meets in an average of 90 kilometers between each ocean. And we get cold winds from the northern hemisphere along from the Pacific Ocean, we get humid and warmer winds, and they clutch together in these mountain range.
Is this what they call the Golden Mile, or the Golden Stretch, or something in Panama?
Mountain range that we have comes from the Rocky Mountains in the United States throughout Salamanca Mountain Range, called Central America. Because in Central America and having is all the way from the Rocky Mountains,
yep,
all the way to Central America. They are connected all the way to Central America. And in our case, it divides the country in 1/3 of the country to the north of the mountain range, to the Caribbean, and the other 2/3 are to the south of the mountain range, to the Pacific.
And you can notice the differences between a farm that is just in a straight line, less than 10 kilometers away from the other one. We have a farm called Luito that is most of the northern farm in Boquete. That farm creates a different crop, a different profile than Elida, that is right in the middle, and then we have El Burro, that is the most southern farm in the country.
Different microclimate. Same elevation,
same varieties coming from the same exact seeds, same process done in the same mill, because all of them are processed in Elida Estate. We bring the coffee from the other farms into Elida Estate for processing, and they provide such unique and different quality. And most of the farmers here have that. And most of them are beautiful, not similar, but beautiful. In Panama, it has a volcanic soil with acrylic volcanic soil and ashes from the volcano, and all these combinations of volcanic soils and all the nature that surrounds the farm. Most of the farms are inside primary forest. In national parks, like the National Baru Volcano Park, that is the one that we have in our farm, or the Parque La Amistad, that is a UNESCO World Heritage park, national park that has part in Costa Rica, part in Panama. And this beauty of green, animals, terroir, the microclimate makes the country special. But also the variety, we got the right variety planted in the right place, but also the open mind, the progressiveness of the growers, a willingness to change. So we had some part covered. The rest is up to us to exponentiate as best as possible that. And my father, this is something that a guy from San Francisco mentioned the last year. He's the Robert Mondavi of coffee. And he says, that's
the guy in San Francisco. He said, hey. He called everybody around him. He said, you know who this guy is? This is the Robert that was in San Francisco. The Robert Mondavi of coffee. I said, don't say that, please.
He's not a great guy. I think that you're a great guy. So
Robert Mondavi, I just know he's a famous wine guy. But the point is that we have to work on that. And working on that is all qualified on the cupping score. We've been doing it. And then if we go to 2001 to 2019 and all these great things that happened in the auction, not only for us, we can say we've had the best, but most of the producers in Panama have been benefited. And
many new producers that benefited from this.
But I want to ask you with that. Sorry, I hear what you're saying. This is something, but right in 2019, with everything that you just said, how big a concern is it for you what's going on with climate change?
Good question.
The warm weather lowered the quality of the coffee.
Is this something you're thinking about though? Like, is this?
Because
okay.
If the farms get warmer, then they are more.
It will affect it, right?
The first thing we're going to lose is quality.
Susceptible for disease. quality goes lower. Storage quality goes lower. Temperature is key for this high quality coffee.
Yeah.
So, well, we've been planting as high as possible.
Lower quality, many other things. Climate change is going to change everything.
No,
Everything.
Yeah. But what we do now, what is in our power is to protect our forest. We still have some nice forest around here.
We have a very good forest. Our farm, half of our farm is inside the Baru Volcano National Park, where we have open areas that my grandparents opened to plant fruit, vegetables, because coffee was not planted at such a high elevation because it's very, very, very high, too high for Panama. Panama limit is like with much technology, 1800, 1900 with a little bit of technology, soil analysis, foliar analysis, using probes to monitor your soils, using a combination of fertilization, which we're organic, but one of our fertilization is organic. We don't use, for example, chemical weed killers or herbicides,
fertilizers or pesticides.
Use chemical fertilizers mixed. So if you do things like that, you can go a little bit higher because your plant is in a better shape. So right now we have planted coffee all the way up to 2,070 meters. When we got the farm from our parents, when I started working for my dad, and my brother and I started working for my dad, the highest elevation coffee was like 300 meters lower. Now we have coffee at 300 meters higher. We don't know if we are going to have climate change soon, but we have coffee at higher elevations now.
Is the only solution for
mountain. We are so surrounded by primary forest. It's a national park because we have only birds. We have 225 species of birds in the Baru Volcano National Park, which is a 14,000 hectares that go around the volcano, let's say from around 1,800 meters all the way to the top, which is 3,500 meters, 3,475. That is a national park. It's protected. It's a very biodiverse park with beneficial microorganisms. It protects the coffee. It's the quality of the coffee. It's not like in an open space where you have an open space. Let's say that any change will come directly to your coffee plantation. This has to go to the mountain, the trees, the canopy. Then it will come down. So for now, first thing we have to protect, which is in our hands, is our forest. Okay. What else do we do? I mean, we use cars and oil and all that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we can protect the forest, and we do protect the forest.
But one of the things we're doing immediate change is the whole plant is going to work on solar panels.
We're installing solar panels right now.
And then the coffee dryers are not the favorite drying method. But when the crop is on a peak, there's no space, and we need to fasten it up with the coffee dryers. The coffee dryers work on smoke. Now they're going to work on electricity that is from the solar panel.
Let me explain to you what it is.
Yeah.
A coffee dryer, the ones that we use, are drum dryers. They rotate. You have the coffee inside the dryer, and then you blow with a blower clean hot air through the coffee to dry it. You control the temperature. That's not a problem.
Is it moving?
It's moving, yes. If the dryer is moving, so what heats that air? There is a chamber where we put wood and we put coffee parchment as fuel. Okay, the wood is wood that fell.
Yeah, it's not wood that we
don't cut.
We cut.
Right, it's sustainably used.
In theory, and they have done this all over Asia, Africa, Latin America, for people who cook with wood. If you have a proper chamber, you do not get any smoke out, and you don't contaminate the people. In theory, those ovens are like that, but it doesn't work. We have a lot of smoke going into the...
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, but electricity is too expensive to heat that air to blow it into the...
Yeah, and electricity also is a contaminator.
And so, but what we're doing is we're putting solar panels on top of our mill.
The thing is that we had to build the roof for the mill. And we had no money until we were able to sell coffee at $800.
So we put the solar panels on top of the roof of the building. Those solar panels generate electricity for the new electric, like radiators, whatever, to heat up the screens, and the air will blow through the screens. And whenever we're not using the electricity for the mill, it goes back into the grid, and we get credit.
The same as how it works here.
So we're using solar panels to produce our energy and send some to the grid.
Back to the grid.
And let's understand on. Big part of the fact that, okay, so we just won an award that was, so there's an association for exporters in Panama and the commerce industry, whatever, Panamanian part of the government. And they do these awards every year. The award exporters, artisanal exporters, big exporters, whatever export. And we got nominated to the exporter of the year. We didn't win one, was won by somebody else. But we got nominated and won one called the social responsibility. Social responsibility because they saw the work we do with nature and the work we do with the kids in the community. The kids from the families from the workers, the families from the workers from the neighbors' farm. And they come and go for school during the non-school time, which is the harvest, where there's no school for the kids. And the kids can have an alternative to the work, the child labor. So they have entertainment, education, sports, everything supervised by a professional professor like that. Kids that go from 2 years old all the way to 16 years old. And then what I want to say with this is that it's significant to have this award. It's significant to be able to put now, fill out, this is the award, look.
Yeah.
And then we have being socially responsible, not coffee grower, exporter of Panama. The president of Panama was there.
And then we have the fact that we can do that. We built a school from scratch. We hire a professor. We buy material. We're building a whole new building, which is a better building with a flat roof for not flat, but
to expand the solar
for solar panels. But all this costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And not do it back then because there was no money in coffee. There was no money in coffee. There was a little by little. Every year we had geisha. Every year we had success in the auction. Every year our catuais were sold at a higher price. We could get something back, profit, a little bit of profit that goes for my grandfather because he's the owner of the farm, profit to pay the wages, profit to reinvest in a new machine because we were using somebody else's machine, renting or something. All the way to getting to a point where we were able to achieve enough to reinvest in our quality of our mill, the quality, the solar panels, the social responsibility for the families that work with us. And all these reinvestments are able to be done once you are able to get a profit. So profit benefits everybody else. Before profit, without profit, there's no way. There was a meeting here. The meeting was about stopping child labor. And then in that meeting, my father said to the people that came from the United States to ask them to stop child labor. He mentioned everything that I just mentioned to you about investing in a school that is a big investment every year. But how are you going to ask the guy that is selling his coffee at $2.10 and it's costing him $2 to produce? How are you going to stop that? And then there's no, they are not the ones that force the kids to labor. It's their parents, it's the culture. One of the things that we realize is the investment is on the parents. The parents need to learn how important
our school program is also for the parents.
Obviously,
the
kids love it. The kids love it. It's the parents that do not understand.
The kids love it.
The parents don't understand it until you teach them. Your kids do not need to go through the same that you went. Your kids have a better, brighter
They can
future.
have a different path to what you've got.
Coffee is creating careers. Coffee used to provide jobs. Now coffee is creating careers. It's creating different lifestyles and things, professionals into coffee. in our farm, people are specialists. We have specialists from different parts: trying, storage, cupping, selection, different sample roasters, coppers. The guy that is the one that is in charge of geisha picking, he is the boss because he knows in all these groups of specialists, and most of them didn't have even a high school or middle school education, most of them, but they learn with us, and their next generation is going to be completely different because they're going to be professionals. They're going to learn, they're going to study about it because they had the opportunity to go to school, just because their parents have an opportunity to work in coffee, in specialty coffee.
It's about this idea. Cosimo Lobato posted a thing on Instagram stories yesterday about the idea of allocating a part of your budget for reinvesting it into your people's education. Some people, and that's what I'm saying. This is the rewards that you reap from doing something like this. We have a challenge at the moment, and I'm experiencing this as a business owner as well. There's with the workforce economy that we have right now in the coffee industry at the front end of the supply chain. We are experiencing a very fast turnover in employees. We're experiencing a situation where, baristas and roasters and, entry-level employees are coming into the market and kind of sort of not figuring out if they want to stay here or not. And so they keep moving on and switching from employer to employer, trying to find the perfect employer. The perfect employer doesn't exist. There's so many options of where they can go that they just keep hopping from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. The great thing about what I'm hearing with you is that, unlike with us, when we put in that initial investment, it's high risk. Because we know there's so many other places that they can go, they'll take what they've learnt from us and quickly hop to another employer and take the investment of education and then hop on to the next employer without any of us actually reaping the rewards of the long-term consequence of that. But with you guys, what I'm starting to see is that your generational experience is expanding into your ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wonderful.
Needed to continue. If we want to continue 100 more years, it has to be like that.
That's wonderful.
Now, we have several workers that have been working with my grandfather, and I met them when I was a baby. But now I think to wrap everything, we can make a quick resume of all the things that happened to the story that we mentioned and how much passion we put into it. My father's so passionate about it. My father and myself, our wives, my mom and my wife, tell us.
Beautiful women, by the way. I just want to tell you.
Thank you.
You picked women that make you look great. I just got to say that. You've got to make sure that.
My mom is in charge. My mom is in charge of the touristic activities in the farm, and she's in charge of the social responsibility. She's the one in charge of getting the t-shirt.
I got to have her on the podcast.
My wife is in charge of doing everything that has to do with branding and images and designing.
You got to get these two women on this podcast.
Even though they are coffee professionals and they enjoy coffee and they know how to cup, they tell us both. So when are we gonna get a vacation? Because every time we travel, coffee work related, and every break we go to visit coffee shops. And they always say that. So the passion, which is fun, the passion for us is fun. I think for some people, no. One time I was during the Best of Panama, and somebody said to me, "So let's go. It's already over. Where are you gonna do this? We have to wait for another extra hour." I'm like, I don't wanna go. I'm watching everything going on. Why not? Why? And in my mind, it's like, because I enjoy this, and that's one of the reasons why we win these things, because we enjoy it.
You're passionate.
So if you start contabilizing. If you take accounting of the hours that we are relating to coffee stuff, that is can consider to be working hours, that we don't even consider working hours. It's so much, and we both have different things in the farm, responsibilities in the company, the family company. We also share some. My father, obviously, he's the president, he's the boss, but at the end of the day, the passion is the same. My father can be even more passionate, because I have to be honest. Even though I entered the industry when the industry wasn't flourishing as it is now, I entered in a way easier path.
He built it. He helped build it.
A bunch of us did.
No, well, a bunch of them, a generational thing, but it was a moment through my father's generation that had the worst and the most in the game-changing part. But at the end, we are succeeding. Our colleagues are succeeding. This is going to the right direction. Hopefully, we can do more. And only podcast like this is communicating to the people that, hey, there are ways to be better. There are ways to get out of crises. But not only in coffee or other industries too. But let's remember something. Nobody, at least in Panama, nobody has become rich. When I say rich, like lavishly rich, from processing specialty coffee. No. The ones that you see that are rich is because they are rich from some other economical activity.
Well, or legal or not legal.
Yeah, but that's what is important, that it's getting sustainable. And sustainability means better opportunities for everybody in the chain. Mm-hmm. Obviously, not everybody is going to have the same profit back, but there should be opportunities, and nobody should be suffering from this. Yes. Our workers get paid better than average farmer workers. They get all the necessities coverage, and they have permission. They can openly, they are friends of us. They can ask my father, they trust my father. They can ask for permission to go to university. Well, my grandfather sponsors university students that are also workers, and they have a future. And if they want to go outside of coffee, it's fine. But I don't think they want to go outside of coffee because they are so
there's an ecosystem. They want to be a part of contributing to growing this.
They love it because they their farm next door, could be brothers, cousins, uncles, and the other farm, and the other farm, and they come from the same region, and they talk to each other. We did well this year, did you guys? Because we did this because that they are part, and they enjoy it too.
Yeah.
When your company is successful, you're part of the.
Everyone wins.
I tell them, I don't harvest coffee. I don't dry coffee. I don't rake coffee. I don't wait coffee. You guys do it. You guys are the ones who do it, not me. You are the guys who do it. I have to thank you guys. And I'm just the leader. They copying them know how to cop. They cop very well. And they are everything.
Can I just tell you guys something? Can I just tell you how fucking fantastic it is to watch you be so proud of your people? It's so beautiful to see it. You look so passionate and so proud and so happy of the people that work for you. It's so lovely to see it.
Yeah, good.
It's real. It's real. It's not like you're pretending. Like, this is real. This is about what you've built, not how much money you've made.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm just so honored to have got to talk to you. Remember before we started, we were saying how quickly the conversation will go. It's 2.5 hours. You believe it?
I know. I've been trying to push away from the phone.
Very good. I love it. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Guys, thank you so much.
Being part of your podcast very much. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure. If you guys are going to be in Portland, let's grab dinner.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
You're gonna be
awesome.
Panama Auction always.
Awesome. We'll have to grab dinner, have cigars, and talk about all the things that we still didn't talk about, because we could still have another 6-hour conversation and not be finished.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Have an amazing day. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.